Continuing on to chapter 14, verse 15. And here are the Jews yelling and screaming. Chapter 14, verse 11. Vayomer el Moshe, amibli en kvarim b'Mitzrayim, lekachtanu lamud b'midbar, ma zot asita lanu, lotzianu miMitzrayim. Oh, here we have the Jews saying unto Moses, because there were no graves in Egypt, that's why you took us out to die in the wilderness. There was a shortage of graves. I mean, you imagine the expression. These are the... Why'd you take us out? Is it not this word that we spoke unto thee in Egypt, saying, let us alone, that we may serve the Egyptians? For it was better for us to serve the Egyptians than we should die in the wilderness. Vayomer Moshe la'am, al tiro. Have no fear. Now they were going to be convinced. Once Moses told them, have no fear, they felt better. Hityatzvu u'ru et Yeshuat Hashem asher ya'aseh lachem hayom. Here you're going to see the salvation of the Lord, what He's going to do for you today, and you shall never see them again. For the Lord will fight for you, and you shall hold your peace, meaning, and you shall be quiet. And then in verse 15 it says, Vayom Hashem Moshe matitzak alai. Why are you yelling to me? Daber el bnei Yisrael. Tell them to go forward. Tell them to go forward. I mean, what do you want them to run into the water? I mean, this is not too easy to understand. V'ata harem et matcha unetei et yadcha al hayam ufka'eu vayavo bnei Yisrael b'toch hayam b'yabasha. Why did he leave all the suspense until the end? He could have told Moshe right away, as soon as they started yelling, there were no graves in Egypt. He should have immediately told Moshe, split the waters. Then they would be, they'd calm down. Right? This whole dialogue. Let's see what the Zohar says about Vatahare met matcha. On page 23 of the Zohar. Hare met matcha shebo rashum Hashem HaKadosh. In other words, what was the power of this rod, of this mateh? Shebo rashum Hashem HaKadosh unetei yadcha b'tzad Hashem HaKadosh ukevan, and extend this with the side of the holy name facing the water. And the waters will flee. When they will see the name of the Shem HaKadosh, they will flee. ועל ונטה את ידך לצד אחד של המטה, כי הצדדים האחרים של המטה יהיה נחוצים לך לדברים אחרים, דהיינו להכות הסלע. In other words, without going, because we can probably spend a year on this one little paragraph of the Zohar, because he's saying many things at the same time. He's telling him that because the Shem HaKadosh was on this mateh, the waters will flee. Why will they flee? What did the Shem HaKadosh have to do? I mean, the waters were responsible. I mean, it's true the Jews had to go through. But why would they flee when they saw the Shem HaKadosh? In fact, all he did was raise the rod. It doesn't even say that he spoke to the waters, like maybe there was an intelligence within the water, and he told the water, flee. They all say this. All say this. In fact, all the waters of the entire world split at that moment. Not only the waters of Yam Suf, but all over the world. The water split. What happened here? And so the Zohar says that immediately after, you see, after Moshe raised his rod, we then have the teachings of the three verses, because the verse I just quoted to you is verse 16. And if you remember previously, I mentioned to you the three verses, verse 19, 20, and 21, which each contain 72 letters. This was immediately prior to the secret being revealed by Moshe to the Jews concerning the 72 letters. But here Moshe raised his rod with the Shem HaKadosh, and at that moment, Vayavo v'nei Yisrael b'toch hayam b'yabasha. Now they walked again. Here it says, I'll first bring out a couple of contradictions here in the verse. It says that is when he raised up his rod, Vayavo v'nei Yisrael b'toch hayam b'yabasha. Right? And then he said, I'm going to harden the heart of the Egyptians, and then the Egyptians are going to know that I am Hashem. Right? But that's not really the way it happened. Because first of all, Hashem told them, go in. Vayiso. Why are they yelling to me? Matitzakalai. Daber el bnei Yisrael v'yiso. Let them go in, into the waters. They were kind of afraid to go in. And you then, when they go into the waters, then raise your rod, and the water will flee. Why didn't it be the other way around, which would be logical, right? Raise your rod, Moshe, Te'et matcha, and then tell the Jews, Vayiso, then they'll see. It's all dried. But it didn't say that. It says afterwards, Vayavo v'nei Yisrael b'toch hayam b'yabasha, but in the first sentence it says, Matitzakalai. Why are they yelling? Why are they yelling? What do you mean why they were yelling? Here are the Egyptians on one side, and here's the Red Sea on the other. Why is Hashem saying, Matitzakalai, Vayiso? Omer Rabbi Shimon. Oy le'elu she'enam ro'im ve'enam mistaklim b'Torah. Obviously, in his day and age, he also had people who read the Torah with a translation, but didn't understand the word. Because he said, woe unto those that do not see and do not indulge or reflect on the Torah. V'Torah koreh lefneihem b'kol yom ve'enam mashkichim. They don't hear it. Borei מצד הגבורה מתעוררים מים בעולם ויוצאים מים. ועתה רצה הקדוש ברוך הוא לייבש המים. למה אומר הכתוב ונטה את ידך? שהוא יד שמאל דהיינו גבורה. Why he's in essence asking, sure, you read the Torah, it says, look, raise the rod, and we said already when they saw the waters, with the Ruach, with the Shema HaMeforash, they saw the name, and the water split. The waters will split. But he's asking now, I mean, why was it all done this way? No other way to do it? Let Hashem come down. What does he need Moses to raise his rod? What is the rod doing? The name is going to split it, supposedly, right? As the Zohar said already, when they saw the Shem HaKadosh, they saw the holy name, that is when they split. But the Zohar says, why did it have to be done that way? Can't Hashem come down, split the sea for them, which would be an equal miracle, and then the Jews would go through. Umeshiv, Elaharem et matcha hu liyavesh hamayim, unetei et yadcha hu leheshiv hamayim, leoret sad hagvura uleheshiv mayim al hamisrim. When it says, Unetei et yadcha, harem et matcha, raise your rod, Unetei et yadcha, stretch out thy hand over the sea, it doesn't have any meaning. What is the purpose of raising the rod, then stretching it out? What does that mean? So the Zohar says these are our codes. Codes like in a computer, right? How do you give commands? Codes. Can't it give a direct command? Why do it need codes for? Nobody understands it. It's hidden. Whoever devised such a thing?
Humans.
What? The human beings. They like codes. You can't give a straightforward command. You got to put it in the form of a code. That's the way they call it anyway. Well, that's the Torah, as you know. It's all written in code. And he says that with this raising of the mateh, the raising was to dry out the water, and then stretching out the hand, hu leheshiva mayim, that is to return the waters as they were before, and in that way, two things were accomplished. Two things were accomplished. One, to dry out the water, and one, to return the water. Why was it necessary to do it this way? Where all he had to do was Hashem come down, split the sea. And why does the Zohar have to explain away, and he has to because it doesn't make any sense, why Moshe had to raise the rod and then stretch out his hand? It doesn't say stretch out the rod. It says raise the rod, stretch out your hand. I mean, not enough to raise the rod? The rod contained the Shem HaKadosh. It seems that the Shem HaKadosh could not return the water. If you read, according to the Zohar, and that's obviously what it says, Harei met matcha, get this clear, lift the rod, lift your rod, unetei et yadcha, and then stretch out your hand. It's like two things are going on, raising of the rod and stretching out your hand. So he explains away because there was a necessity of two actions taking place. Two actions. One was the action of the rod, the Shem HaKadosh. The Shem HaKadosh split the water, but then it seems like the Shem HaKadosh could not return the waters. I could only split the sea. You see, it had that power of splitting the sea. But to bring the sea back again, it could not. And here the Zohar is teaching us the essence. In another part of the Zohar, and I just stated briefly, that each day that everything was created, the Lord made a condition with every physical entity. That because, from a Zohar point of view, and even some people, you hear some people discussing about mind over matter, but not really everybody believes in it. Mind over matter, only if maybe you see an Uri Geller bending a spoon, you figure either it's magic or maybe a little mind over matter. But maybe that's only Uri Geller. Who else can do that? Mind over matter. Matter is in control. So the Zohar tells us that when water was created, he created water with a condition and a stipulation. That you must remember one thing, that while you are an energy intelligence of what? Of chesed, as you know, those of you who know the internal energy intelligence of water, which is chesed, and that's why water rises to seek its own level, it's the sharing. It's the outpouring, outstretching kind of intelligence, just as smart as we are. It doesn't have maybe the same power as we have, but it has the same intelligence as we have. It understands exactly as we understand. And Hashem, at the time of creation, stipulated that you would have to change your natural intrinsic characteristic of what? Of stretching out, of flowing. That at the time of Kriyat Yam Suf, there would be a command given to you that you would have to change your natural characteristic. Water stops. No such thing. Water seeks its own level. It wants to flow. So the Zohar says that at that point in creation, and in fact, every day, like the sun on the fourth day, that there was also a condition with the sun, that when Joshua sent a command to the sun, stop your rotation, and it stopped. Because it was already stipulated at the time of creation that human mind over matter. Human mind over matter. No matter how strong that matter is, no matter how distant that matter is, because when you're talking about intelligence, if you're talking about mind control, you're talking about another animal. But how does mind travel? How does mind intelligence travel? It had a Shem HaKadosh. What do you mean it had a Shem HaKadosh? Because these Shemot, and we call them Shem HaKadosh. Why do you call it holy? If you're a religious Jew, you say, well, holy. Must have some holy substance to it. From a Kabbalistic point of view, we know what Kadosh means. It means someone operating with a three-column system, with a circuit of energy. When we say a Chag is Kadosh, not talking about something holy. We talk about a man. He's Kadosh. A Mekubal, he's Kadosh. What do you mean Kadosh? The man who's Kadosh is the man who expresses and shows people by his own actions that he operates on a three-column system. That's the Mekubal. There is no other Mekubal around. Only that one, who is first of all certainly not of the Erev Rav. That goes without question. Because if you ever hear a Mekubal, no matter, he could represent himself as a Mekubal, but if you who are not Mekubalim, we are not Mekubalim, right? If we hear someone have a little sinah, wash him out. You don't have to question the amount of knowledge he has acquired. Don't ask who his teacher is. Don't ask him what he wrote, because there can't be a Mekubal who has not written. But let's say this one is like the Ari. He was so much Kadosh because the Ari didn't write anything himself. So this Mekubal today also doesn't write because he's like the Ari. But if you know that you've heard him say once, this man is no good, that's no good, wash him out. He's not the Ari. Wash him out instantly.
That would narrow things down to quite a bit.
Well, we're looking for shortcuts.
No, as
right?
far as the people in this world, I mean.
Well, the Ari makes these statements, and if you think the Ari, with all of his knowledge that he has presented us, seems to have validity, then you go along with most of his credibility, right? How else do you judge if you accept a man's principles or not? If most of what he sounds right to you, you accept it. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So this Shem HaKadosh is a vehicle that can handle circuit of energy. Do we have to go further than the bulb? The bulb has a three-column system. It has a positive pole, and it has a negative pole, and it also has a filament, kochit nagdut. These three-column systems are that which make kadosh, which makes circuitry, which makes it for a channel that energy, electricity, can go through the bulb. Energy, higher forms of energy, intelligence goes through the Mekubal. Why does it go through the Mekubal? If the Mekubal says, wow, what I just thought about, listen to this great thought I had. If he ever says that, wash him out too, David. Wash him out too. If he ever says, this is mine, wash him out. Because the minute he says it's mine, he's not a channel. Kadosh means channel. Kadosh only means channel. And the minute someone says me, he's no longer the channel. He has to say we, but not me. Therefore, when we discuss the Shem HaKadosh, we're talking about these holy names. When he stretched out, when he raised this matcha, he raised his rod. The Zohar says that was for what? Stop. That was for stopping. That was a message. That was a message that Moshe sent, that the Zohar says. Remember, at the time of creation, mind over matter. He had the Shem HaKadosh. He had the proper channel by which to connect to water. And in the morning, we've gone through this enough. Not to give to take up time with illustrations, but believe you me, if you want to enjoy your tea and you don't talk to the cup might not like you, you will not enjoy the tea. Okay? But that, taking it to its extreme. Watch the table you eat on. They even say maybe even watch the company you eat with. Right? All of these things, because everything has intelligence. Everything. And so therefore, when Moshe raised the rod, he raised the rod. Stop. The rod had that Shem HaKadosh, that was the energy intelligence that said, you remember at the time of creation water, you got to stop. That's what it did. Only because it had the Shem HaKadosh there. Only because he was in a position to be able to communicate. Like for those who on Shabbat use the 12 chalot. 12 chalot. Some think it's a holy thing. It is a holy thing. What do you mean it's a holy thing? Because the Ari established you want to talk to the cosmos, you want to talk to intelligence, you've got to use something physical in a certain way with a Shem HaKadosh and those chalot, as you know, the way the Ari describes it in the Shara Kavanot. Those chalot permit the connection to wherever you want to go. You've got to have the Shem HaKadosh. If you do not have the Shem HaKadosh, you can sit and meditate on a mountain for the rest of your life. According to the Kabbalah, you never make it. If you sit on a mountain all your life and you'll be free of stress, it's questionable because there are certain months of the year, like Av, Shvat, Tammuz, negative energy. So you can be sitting on top of the mountain. If you can't talk to that negative energy on Shvat, Av, and Tammuz, you haven't got the connection to them, they won't permit you to be sitting on a mountain and live in serenity and tranquility. All right? You've got to have the Shem HaKadosh. This is what he was using, and this brought the message of Moshe, says the Zohar, brought the message of Moshe. That was the command. That was the command. The water at that moment stopped. Now it needed. How many commands can a computer take?
Much memory as it has.
But how many commands at one time?
One.
Only one. This massive computer can only handle one. Why can't it handle 200? Can a person handle a few commands at the same time? Yes. Yes, a person can. But at least a computer or physical matter can't handle more than one command. And therefore, Moshe couldn't tell the water both things at the same time. Split and come back. He had to use unitei et yadcha alayam and bend it over. Okay? That's what the Zohar says. After this demonstration of mind over matter, then we have immediately, before this action is going to take place, the aspect of the 72 letters. Vayisa, as it is known, Vayavo, Vayet. The three Vavs. Right? Vayisa, Vayavo, Vayet. Each one containing 72 letters. We know that the Bet, and you'll soon read all about it, the Bet was the letter by which the entire world was created. But everything, right? That's why the Torah begins with the letter Bet, because Bet, over all other letters, was chosen as the letter by which the entire world, all of the galaxies, everything that we can never see anywhere, was created by the Bet. And the Zohar says, why the Bet? One of the reasons, because the Bet fit the qualification. It has three Vavs, right? It has three columns. That's where the three-column system comes from. So I call it the super force. Why is it called the super force? Because it contains kadosh. Remember we said 3 columns. What do you mean by 3 columns? That's the atom of electron, neutron, and proton. Everything is in 3s. Here also we have 3 psukim. So if you learned a little Kabbalah, you know already the significance of why there must be 3. Because 3 is kadosh. 3 makes up a system, a total system. There must be a ratzon lekabel, there must be a desire to receive, there must be a desire to share, and there must also be a desire to restrict. Those 3 systems. So therefore, each of these 3 psukim begin with a vav. Therefore, the bet was chosen because it could be the channel, it could be the tzinor, the kivun, by which all intelligences of the human being to rule and control everything in the cosmos, because everything was created with what? With a seed of 3-column system. Now, I just wanted to divert for a moment, and of course at this point it is very sensitive, although we're over 40 years from the time of the Shoah, but we have learned something about the Erev Rav. Now the Erev Rav is not called the Sitra Achra. Sitra Achra in the Zohar means that other column. That other side. Not column. That other side. What is that other side? That other side. You ever hear the expression? That other side of him. Oh, terrible. You ever hear the expression? The other side of him. What's the other side of him? He has 2 sides to him. The other side. But that's the way the Zohar discusses, and I call it what the Ari says, that when someone it consists of, daily negative human activity. Every day he hates, every day he steals, every day he's full of negative activity. So the Ari says, what happens? What happens? That when a person does an Aveda, he steals, it's not only that he is doing something wrong to his fellow neighbor, but he is building an intelligent force of negativity. That force is the force of the Sitra Achra that nourishes from this activity. In other words, the Sitra Achra, that other side, is not that terrible guy that does bad things, that he is totally bad. In other words, his only objective in this universe is to manifest that which if I'm bad, that which I created. Because Sitra Achra is created by human activity. And so if, let's say, there was precision, and I've done many, many years of research on the Holocaust, the only thing that I could never understand until I became deeply involved in Kabbalah was the precision of the Holocaust. The only thing that bothered me. Because you could say in the world has such beautiful order. As much as we try to think this universe as having so much pure disorder, right? But you wake up in the morning, the sun is there. At night, the moon is there, and all the stars. The earth never stops rotating the way it should. We can all predict order in the universe. But down right here, somehow, there seems to be full of negativity. Disorder. And the one thing I noticed in the Shoah, as I read and reread over many years, it was too precise. There was too much order to that disorder. And that always plagued me. Because when you throw a bomb, it's indiscriminate. It goes without order. It explodes and just demolishes everything in its way, but not with precision. You can land the bomb with precision, but what happens, the impact and everything else is almost unpredictable. After that, as all physicists will tell you, after impact, we have learned in the morning, impact you can't predict. Impact is empty. Nothing happens at impact. What happens after that depends on only the mental activity of the individual. There was too much order in this. And according to the Ari, let's say at the time of the destruction of the temple, we'll take that period because it's 2,000 years ago, so it's a lot easier to discuss. The creative construct of the 24,000 Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva. These were not people who came to destroy the Jew. It was the Jews' inhumane activity, negative activity, that came back to finish him off. That activity, his own activity, came back to finish the job. So wherever there is precision, and there is, as the Gemara will explain, the reason for the destruction was inhumane activity. So according to the Ari, because each one created the Sitra Achra, it is not an evil force that suddenly comes into the world. It is an evil force that is created by man because there is no matter, physical matter in the world, whether it's in the form of a human or otherwise, that has not been created by negative human activity. So whatever Shoah comes, it is our own reflection in the mirror, according to the Ari. Our own reflection in the mirror. And those people, were they real people? Were those Germans real people? Yes. Were they acting out their own part? According to the Ari, no, if there is precision. If there is precision, it is part of the cosmos. When there is disorder, then things are helter-skelter. That's not part of the universe. The universe is always in precision. Nothing changes in the universe. And this Shoah was too precise, just in mentioning. So the aspect of mind over matter, if there is negative activity, they created their own doing. So here, getting back to these three, the three columns. When we asked, anyone can learn, in other words, you really don't have to, what we're going to discuss now is some of the details on these three psukim, on these 72 names, how they came about, why they came about the way they did, and some of them that we make use of. It is because they are linked and connected with the bet. And if you can connect with the bet, you've connected with the seed of the universe. Now, if you're connected with the seed, then you are the seed of the universe, because if you behave in a matter of the three-column system, if you behave as a kadosh, there's very little being a kadosh, incidentally. Although it seems to be so difficult by we Jews, but all it requires is an aspect of not hating. All it requires, but I say is maybe it's not that easy because we haven't been too successful, is making use of three columns, like the bulb. Sharing. There should be a desire to receive, because without a desire to receive, there is no aspect of sharing. You cannot share that which you don't have. So nowhere in Kabbalistic teachings, which is completely contrary, incidentally, to all other forms of Eastern traditions, in which the desire to receive, the ratzon lekabel, should be done away with. In Kabbalah, we say the stronger it is, the better it is. However, akedat yitzchak, you have to bind it, you have to control it. How do you control it? By sharing and restriction. So these three, says the Zohar on the bet, they represent in Parshat in Vayikra, page 35, The bet represents these three systems. That is the superforce. That is the channel by which the whole force of the Lord becomes manifest. These 72 names are its expression. Now, if someone is not there, someone's going to pick this up, and he wants to get rid of a friend of his, right? A friend that he feels is no longer a friend. The answer is that can never happen. Because when we discussed before the prerequisite, there is a tanai, there is a condition. There is a condition that before you can exercise the 72 names, you must be connected and linked up with the bet. You must be hooked up and linked with the three vavs. If you're not in tune with the three vavs, forget it. You can make every attempt to make use of it, but you can't. You can't. Therefore, Moshe first demonstrated that mind can be over matter if you have the proper channels. The channels that the rest of the Jews were going to make use of was these three psukim. Now, obviously, if we say there are three, we know that the first pasuk, and of course you know, and I shouldn't have to repeat it, but the reason why we are discussing how they originated, what do we have to know? Let's just get a hold of the names and let's make use of it. Let's see where we can make use of it. That is not sufficient, because knowledge is the connection. You must know everything there is to know to the degree that you can understand, everything that there is possible. To be able to have knowledge of these 72 names will further increase the intensity of the channel. So if we have three psukim, Vayisa, Vayavo, Vayet, these three psukim verses which begin with the Vav, obviously the first one will be right column. In other words, these 72 letters in the first verse, verse 19, is connected with the right column, says the Zohar. Vayavo, the second verse, verse 20, is connected with the left column. And the third verse, verse 21, manifests the central column, the middle column, Vayet. Now, if you will notice in this Tavla, these 72 names, what is, as the Zohar will explain, and you have it over here, if we can, for those of you at least who can read Hebrew, you will see that the first Tavla here, the first Tavla is the verse as it flows like water forwards. So you'll see the words Vayisa, and the next word is Elokim, and so forth and so on. This column represents the right column. Then we have the second verse. We have Vayisa Malach Elokim, but you'll see Vayisa, the second word is Malach, and then you have Ha-Elokim. And it runs in a forward manner, in an outreach manner. All right? But you'll all take those, so you can look at. That's right. Why don't we look at it at the what's that?
The mind is blocking.
Right. Okay. You see that Vayisa, and you have Malach Mem Lamed Aleph Kaf, and then you have the Hey, and you go up there to the Aleph Lamed Ke Yud Mem Elokim. That is the way the verse reads. That's the code. This is your code that establishes the channel for the establishment of in an atom would be the right column, the proton. We establish every form of energy that exists in this universe is encompassed. That means, you know the way they say in physics, they're splitting the proton, and they're discovering new particles and new particles and new particles. These letters control every particle of that atom. By connecting with these letters, you are connecting with certain aspects, and all aspects, I should say, of the right column of the atom, the proton. Then we have the verse number 20, which is Vayavo. Vayavo. Okay? The second column. You see? Now here we're going to go in reverse. Vayavo. Notice Vav, Yud, Vav, Aleph. Right? Ben, Bet, Yud, Nun. Right? And it keeps going. Now, Machneh, which is the verse. Now, how come the left column is going up this way? Why is it going in the opposite direction? For those of you who have learned the Talmud Sefirot, understand that what must be, from an intelligent energy point of view, what must be done with your desire to receive? It must be restricted. It must be pushed backwards. And so these letters of these letters that control the electron, the negative aspect of the atom, begins in an opposite direction. And then we have the final column, which is the central column, which is Vayet Moshe et Yado, and you will see Vayet. Are we getting that clear? Mm-hmm. No. Okay. Oh, here it is. Vav Yud Tet Mem Shin Hey. Vayet Moshe. Okay. Et Yado. Yud Daled Vav Al Hamayim, and so forth. This runs in the same order. In the same order. Now again, for the neutron, this is serious business. The physicists, I can say, Baruch Hashem, today have come to the point that everything they write about and everything they are discussing today, read the end of the article. It has one sentence. Nothing here is for sure. One sentence. With all the billions of dollars that are being spent on research today, notice every article how it is concluded. We are not sure. It is not conclusive.
Very scientific.
That is very scientific. That is very scientific, okay? We are precise. Every one of these letters in the third verse controls every particle of the neutron. That means this was what was essential for the Jew to receive this kind of knowledge before Kriyat Yam Suf. Why before Kriyat Yam Suf? Because all of the 10 miracles were things that were not out of the ordinary, like even Makot Bechorot. All of those firstborn ultimately would die. And what are you talking about? They all died in one day. They all died maybe prematurely. But death is not a miracle. Death is something that would come ultimately. The reason why the Zohar began by saying, why did Hashem bring them to the Yam Suf, is because it was necessary to make that manifest there. Why at the Yam Suf? Because, and on that particular day, because there the miracle was really going to happen. What was the miracle? That nature would change its course. Death did not change its course. Makot Bechorot, the slaying of the firstborn, they all died at once. There could have been a plague. In fact, how do some people explain away all of the Makot? By natural means. They even want to explain away the splitting of the Red Sea. A strong wind came and dried up the sea. It's possible. But we are not discussing the splitting of the Red Sea. That's not significant. And that's where all Bible critics expend all of their energy is to explain away the Bible. That's not what we want to learn here this evening, and that's not what the Torah, in its coded message, had intended for us. It was here for the first time that a channel and a system of how to control the universe, how to connect to what I call the superforce of the bit, came into existence. And it came into existence because it became manifest. In other words, the Yam Suf was the effect, and it also was the manifestation. It became established. This system of the 72 letters became established in the universe. By what virtue? When did it become manifest? How did it become manifest? By Kriyat Yam Suf. So Kriyat Yam Suf was essential so that this knowledge that was given prior became manifest, because if not, it would have remained a thought. So when we celebrate subsequently, it is by virtue of the Jew who made this manifest. I'm not concerned that he used it or he didn't. But on that day, or now, or on Shabbat, we have certain codes that we use. Are you allowed to use? You would know. Are you allowed to use a computer on Shabbat? No. Yet we use this on Shabbat. Maybe the law was only for a physical computer. All right? So the Kriyat Yam Suf was not merely to demonstrate the miracle, but rather to activate the command of mind over matter, and it became manifest. Now, getting to the tablet itself, you'll notice the first three letters, Vav, Hey, Vav. Okay? Now, as we have already explained, each individual tablet provides us with a connection and the channel to every particle, if I can call it particle, but I would rather say to every intelligence that exists in a proton. The second one, or the second verse, connects with every particle that exists within negativity, or the electron, and the third one with every intelligence of the central column. Now, as we are familiar with the force of the atom, it is the force. In fact, every person, every table consists of 99% of atoms. That seems to be the structure. That seems to be the force that keeps anything together. And we examine the atom, and we learned that within the atom, you must have three. You must always have three components. So the reason that we have 72 names, it's names, not 72 letters. The 72 letters are connections with each individual form of energy, whether it's right column, sharing, left column, desire to receive, or central column, restricting, to make a force when necessary. Okay, let's take the one we use on Shabbat. The one we use on Shabbat is called Mahash. It is also Moshe, but it's Mahash. It's a code name. And unfortunately, and I say truly unfortunately, that if you open up the Siddur, and on Shabbat there is a prayer for the people who are ill. And it says Shabbat hi melizok. Hopefully that Shabbat will Shabbat hi melizok. Shabbat is something from damaging, to translate it literally. In other words, this is a prayer for someone who is ill so he can recover. And hopefully Shabbat will prevent any danger from befalling this individual. Shabbat hi melizok. You will notice that the first three letters is Shin, Hey, Mem. But why was it put that way? Why wasn't it put as Mahash? And we are told in the Zohar that Mahash is the code name. The code. It's a 3-column system to be used for what? For the fuah. For the fuah. And obviously, when you make this prayer, but unfortunately, I would say probably, Jack, 99% of synagogues, and not talking about the Reform, they probably don't even know about this prayer, but let's say even the Orthodox make this prayer, they are not familiar with the thought of Mahash, Mem He Shin, because it's in code. It says Shabbat hi milizok, and so they would take it literally. And you know what we read right at the very beginning of tonight's lecture was, those who interpret and translate the Torah, woe unto them, because it's an exercise in futility. You're wasting your time. They make this prayer, but if they are not connecting to the code of Mahash, that prayer, should I say, probably adds up to 0. Because the intent of that prayer was to conceal, the same way as the soul is concealed in the body. Nobody sees the soul. All you can do is see the body. So is prayer. So is tefillah. It is not something that, or even to understand the kavanot of, or the perush hamilot, I should say, the meaning of the words, that's unimportant. It is the juice, the electricity, the charges that you put into those same words that produce the effect. Without electricity, you can have a cable system, but you forgot to put the juice in. Nothing happens. The juice here are these letters that act as channels for the juice for what? Mahash? Mahash is a code name for Shabbat Milazok. The same way as we have Hallel. Well, maybe some people will, who are ill, maybe will make use of it, so I'm just going to point to it here. See that right where my finger is? Mahash. Mem He Shin. It's Shabbat Milazok. It's backwards. Because it's a coded name. It's a code. It's a code. All right? Another one is Hallel. We wouldn't want to mention that one because that's such a famous one, made famous by Eastern tradition, which is the, okay, for Jack's sake, I'll say it. Om. You know that old familiar mantra in Eastern religions? Om, right? How could you have meditation without an om, right? But here it is, right there. Right there.
Proton, electron, neutron.
What's that?
Proton, electron, neutron, ohm.
That's right. That's right. Even in physics, the ohm. Okay?
Oh, really?
The ohm is the resistance. The scale of
All right.
Ohms.
Now each one of these letters consists of one letter of each of the three. Again, following through that every force, every channel must consist of these three intelligences. All right. Now on Rosh Chodesh, which will be in a few days, we also say the bracha. We say the blessing. Asher kiddushanu b'misrotav b'tzivanu l'klo et hahallel. Now we have here. You will notice below my finger. Are we picking it up? There we are. Lamed, Lamed, Hey. It's like the Mahash. Now, if we had a couple of more months, we'd be able to go through each one in detail, but it'll come out. It'll come out. Lamed, Lamed, Hey, which reverse is Hallel. Hallel. So when you pray the Hallel, it's again, if you're considering this prayer as something that you're supposed to do or supposed to recite on Rosh Chodesh, you've lost it. You've lost it. Because Hallel connects you with Malchut, with Aleph Daled Nun Yud. Aleph Daled Nun Yud, which is another form of the Lord's name, another manifestation, which is about Hallel, which has to do with signs of the zodiac, and the 7 planets to master and control the signs of the zodiac. That when you're sitting up on that mountain and you've got Tammuz and you've got Av and you have Shvat, which according to the Zohar are the 3 most negative months of the year, you say Hallel, but concentrate on the Lamed Lamed Hey of Hallel. It's a code, not to give praise, which is the usual translation of the word. We're praising Hashem as if he needs it, right? No, it's another form of a coded name. Now, what's that? I was just going to say that. What's that? How did we go so wrong? I think I have to say that religion became politics. And politics, reading your newspapers every day, seems to go wrong. And if anything resembles politics, then it's got to go wrong. All right? Okay, then we have some of the on Purim, right? There is going to be another letter. Kahat. We and for those who have celebrated, when I say celebrated, I mean connected with our Purim. This is, we don't use the Graga, we don't use that noisemaker, but we'd like to use this word. You see, we like to use this little combination because in essence it's a code name for takeh. If you know a little Hebrew. Takeh, to beat. In other words, we're not talking about Haman. We're talking about the negative energy intelligence that Haman represented. That was the kind of energy. Who created Haman? Who created Haman? We did. I say, the Holocaust of 40 years ago is too fresh in the minds of many, but in every Holocaust, or every intended Holocaust, the Zohar, as well as the Gemara, the Talmud, as well as all of the other commentators, will always remind us that the ones responsible for the arising of these supposedly negative influences were caused by the Jews themselves. They brought it upon themselves. But if we have that negative energy intelligence, if we concentrate as we do when we hear the word Haman, and there will be a lecture on the Megillah from a Kabbalistic point of view, let's make use of it. I mean, if you want life to be a little easier, if you got life easy, you don't have to hear the Megillah. But, in case you think you can improve the quality of your life, then I can suggest maybe you try it out. But this is only for those who have need for it. Those of you who don't, you can really stay home. Enjoy a good movie. Why? Did I say something wrong? No? Okay. So what we see in these various names are what is referred to as the Shem HaKadosh. But they're not such a mystery. It's there for everyone to see. But as I said before, there is one requirement. There is one requirement. Now, if you will discuss these requirements with the establishment, they will give you a long list of requirements. I say all the requirement is love thy neighbor. No other requirement. Now that's not a big order anymore, right? That's as simple as can be, especially for Jews. That's all we've been listening. I think I mentioned this a couple of days ago. It was 2 years ago. We had a seminar in our branch in Los Angeles. I walked into a restaurant, and there was this real religious fellow. And he says, where are you from? Meaning, like, of what persuasion am I, I said, I'm from the people who say, love thy neighbor. He says, "You're not telling me you're Jews for Jesus, are you?" I mean, like this is not part of religion. And I had to go on to explain it to him that it happens to be a pasuk. It's a verse in Kedoshim. It's in the Torah. It's not even really that distant from Judaism.
He's the guy who was telling you should study the Kiddushim.
Yeah, that's right. And he's the guy who's telling me. That's right. That's right. The only requirement is love thy neighbor. But as Hillel said, if you can achieve love thy neighbor without any of the mitzvot, it's right. He said that. Because the other 612 mitzvot are only there to bring you to a place. Only to bring you to a place. And if you've arrived, you've arrived. Only that the mitzvot are generally there to condition the individual to bring him to that point. But again, if you're really in that space, then you're not thinking of making use of these 72 letters for a negative human activity, because that's a prerequisite. So if you're in the right place at the right time, all of these various names, which are mentioned throughout the Zohar, can be used, and we illustrated several of them, which are very vital to our daily well-being. We can make use of them. And hopefully that we've really entered a new era of mind over matter, and we shall control our destiny. Good night.